Today I'm going to be taking this knit checkered bag and remaking it to be practical and useful. The first thing I did was take out the top crochet row that I made to smooth out the top. Then very carefully I cut out the sides where I had sewn them together. I removed any loose pieces of thread, and now that I have all the panels again loose, now I began taking one panel and taking it out so that I could use it. Set up my knitting machine again, and also began with waste yarn. Then I began knitting with the blue yarn, and for the top and bottom squares I did 15 rows, whereas the rest of the squares were going to be 14 rows. Switched to green and made 14 rows for the rest of the panel until the last square. I wanted it to be as big as I had made the one before, so I did 3 squares of dark blue, 3 squares of green, and finished up this panel with some waste yarn. Now originally I had planned to make 3 panels, but I noticed that on the first one I forgot to do 15 rows on the last square, and I realized that 2 panels is actually the size that I want and most practical and what I would need. So I decided to go with 2 panels. Next, I turned them inside out and tied up all the ends from the color changes. Next was closing up the top and bottom of the panels. And now aligning them to make a checkered pattern, I took out a needle and a piece of yarn and sewed them together. Next was folding it in half and sewing up the sides. Next was hiding in all the ends, which I did with my crochet hook. Now it was time to work on the handle. I switched the knitting machine to the back and forth mode and began casting on with the blue. And I just made a long panel going back and forth so that it should kind of curl up and create a nice thick handle. To sew it onto the bag, at first I thought to lay it out flat and sew it on like that, but then I realized it would cover up too much. So instead I folded it kind of in half down to the middle, and that's how I sewed it on. And that's it. I finally have a knit checkered bag which is practical and useful and looks gorgeous.